drug abuse, cancer,
measles, diabetes, AIDS, cancer, brought to you through the kind compliments of the Hills and Valley Pharmacy. We want to welcome our viewers on GBN television now, to our listeners on Classic Radio, and those of you viewing online and or via our GBN website, www.gbn.gd, or via our social media platforms. It is great to have you this evening. Now, as you may be aware, February has been designated the Cancer Awareness Month. And in a partnership with the Cancer Society over the last few weeks, the GBN has been helping spread the awareness on cancer and mitigating efforts. Tonight, the focus is on prostate cancer, and I'm very pleased to introduce our guest this evening. We have joining us via telephone Dr. Hector Diaz. He's an oncologist, and we have two cancer survivors, Mr. Terrance Smith and Mr. Ronald Oneal. Gentlemen, good evening and welcome to Doctor on Call.
Good evening and thank you for hosting us.
It is indeed a pleasure to have you. Dr. Diaz, can you hear us? Well, we're still not hearing Dr. Diaz. Dr. Diaz should be with us on telephone, but we're not hearing him at all still. I don't know why. Dr. Diaz? Folks, the technology has not been very cooperative this evening. We've been having some trouble connecting, and we seem to have lost Dr. Diaz again. If he can join us, I hope he calls us back or maybe try us back on Zoom. But in the meantime, in the interest of time, we've already lost at least 20 minutes of the program. So, gentlemen, two cancer survivors, welcome to the program. It's great to have you. So I want to get to the genesis of it. Were you screening? Take us to the time of detection. We'll start with you, Mr. Smith.
How should I put it? I had not been screening on a consistent basis. Okay? I had, over the previous 10 years, so I was diagnosed just over a year ago, about a year and a half ago. And for the prior 10-year period, I would have done some complete medicals and so forth. And I would have done the prostate PSA test a couple of times, probably on average every 2 or 3 years. But prior to my diagnosis in 2019, I had not done any tests for about 3 years before that. I had no symptoms. I had no indication that anything was amiss. And my story is quite interesting in that I went to my GP, who's also a dermatologist, for what turned out to be a minor skin problem. And in the process of conversation, my doctor asked, when last have you done, your tests and so on? I said, well, maybe about a year and a half ago. It turned out to be more than 3 years ago. So she said, well, let me just send you to do, a suite of blood works, as they call it. And it was in that process that I discovered that I had a very, very high PSA reading. And, well, that started me out on the journey that I followed. I guess I could pick up again from here.
Okay. Before you go on, Dr. Diaz, is that you with us on the Zoom now? Dr. Diaz? Okay, so we can see him, but we're still not making that connection with him. Let me see if Good evening.
Hi, hello.
Dr. Diaz? Hello? Hello? Dr. Diaz, are you there? We're hearing you on the phone. Stay with us on the phone.
Hello.
Yes, we're hearing you loud and clear now. Are you hearing us? Okay, Dr. Diaz, we seem to have some connection issues still, so we'll try it again. I know when it doesn't work, it's a bit frustrating at times. Mr. Oneal, share with us your experience. How were you diagnosed?
Well, I think I'll go back a little further than just a diagnosis. My story began in 1978. My father died of prostate cancer in 1978. And I later learned that two of my cousins, my first cousins, they were diagnosed with prostate cancer, and they were, around 50 years of age. And then my uncle, my father's brother, died of prostate cancer. So I realized that there was a strong genetic link. So from the time I was 40 years, I started doing a PSA test annually. Well, of course, I would do the general blood work, but include a PSA test. I kept my records every year, and sometime around 2016, I realized that my PSA had a little jump. And then in 2017, there was another jump. 2018, there was another jump. So about almost 15 years before, the PSA was just increasing very gradually. But between 2016 and 2018, there were jumps every year. So I became a little concerned and decided to check on it. I had a biopsy done of the prostate, and it turned out that it was positive for prostate cancer. That was in 2018, December 2018. Yeah. So that's the part of the diagnosis that I've been annually.
So in your case, there is a family history, and so you were continuously following up. But Mr. Smith, in your case, it was just through screening and finding out. But prior to the screening, were there any symptoms that something was not right?
No, I'd indicated that there were no, and I, unlike Ronald, I didn't know of any family history of my father died from a heart attack. He was 84 years old. At the time, I didn't know of any family history. I subsequently found that I had a couple of uncles, my mother's brothers, two of whom had prostate cancer. But at the time, I didn't know of any family history, and I had no symptoms. As I said, it was not routine testing. It was testing quite by chance. That was in June of 2019, and then I was diagnosed a couple of months later.
Okay. So the screening, so would you agree that a regular check to the doctor probably will not identify the problem? Is it a specific test that you have to do to determine if you have the prostate cancer?
Well, no, not at all. I don't think that's what I'm saying. I subsequently, I have learned, obviously, I'm sure any survivor would tell you that they would have done a fair amount of research. Sometimes too much research is not good. But we're curious people, and we want to find out. And nowadays we live in the information age, and we we go online and we research, and so my understanding is that previously it was recommended that men over 50 should regularly do a PSA, which is the blood test to determine a problem with the prostate. I subsequently learned, I can come to that, but I did my surgery in the United States in November of 2019. And around that time, I subsequently learned that for Black people, it is recommended that once you reach 40, that you should be doing regular screening, period, whether you know of a family history or not. So it's not just a matter of going to the doctor for your regular checkup, that men should be doing annual PSA tests, and not only the PSA test, which is the blood test, but also the physical, what's referred to as the digital exam. And I am sure Doc would speak to that and the significance of that, but it is strongly recommended that it is both the physical examination, that is what they refer to as the digital examination of the prostate, as well as the blood test, as referred to as the PSA. So that is my understanding.
Okay.
And what I can now advocate to all men out there is that you do not have to have a problem. You do not have to have symptoms, right? You do not have to be in pain. You do not have to be waking up several times a night to urinate or whatever. And all the symptoms are the telltale signs. This thing can creep up on you and just hit you like a ton of bricks. Because when I discovered my PSA, it was 15.9, right? I subsequently discovered that I had done an executive medical in Trinidad about 9 years before, and my PSA was 2.5, right? So several years before, it's supposed to be within 4, and when I checked another test, it had gone to, in about 2 or 3 years, it had gone to 3 point something, and then it had gone to 4 point something. But back then, I wasn't aware of the significance. It is not only where the PSA reading is, but what is significant, I subsequently understood, is the rate, as Ronald referred to, the rate at which the PSA is increasing as you do successive, PSA tests.
I don't know.
So I'll pause here now on that.
You hear me now?
Okay, well, good news. I think we have both Dr. Nixon and Dr. Diaz. We're hearing you loud and clear finally. Welcome to the program. Dr. Diaz, how are you?
I'm okay, thank you. Thank you for inviting me.
Okay, Dr. Nixon, always a pleasure.
Really? It's nice to see you.
Always.
Good night, gentlemen. Good evening to Grenada.
Good night.
Dr. Nixon, Dr. Diaz, either one of you. So I'm hearing for the first time about the PSAs. Prior to this, I was clueless as to what the PSA is. How men are probably wondering, can I get the PSA done anywhere? Do I have to go to an oncologist? Can I get it at a health center? How does one get to know their PSA?
You want me to go?
Yes.
So let me go as a public health person. So a PSA, and Dr. Aiken, who spoke 2 weeks ago, spoke extensively about it. It is a test that you do because it's a chemical substance that's produced by the prostate-specific antigen. And it kind of reflects the level of activity going on in the prostate. And I'm listening to Terry Smith talking about his prostate going up. If I had seen you 10 years ago with a 2 point, whatever you had, I would have done it 6 months later. Because you cannot judge by a single PSA. It has to be, because like he says, he's kept creeping. So did Ronald, right? The prostate creep, because there's all of this activity, all of this inflammatory activity going on. So the gland keeps producing this thing. And Terry also made a very important point. And this important point is that here, go to your PSA, but make sure you get a digital rectal examination. standard procedure, good medicine, good health care, good health education, good health best practices say, and again reiterated and really taken home by Dr. Aiken 2 weeks ago, who's the head of urology at the University Hospital in Kingston, Jamaica, that you have to have a digital rectal examination. And a prostate-specific antigen test is an aside. Because the side of the prostate that develops the malignancy is the side that you can test through the rectum. You feel it, where it goes first, on that side. The prostate test gives you an idea as to what is going on. Because you can actually have an elevated PSA and don't have cancer. You can have what is called a BPH, benign prostatic hyperplasia. Benign as in not cancerous, prostatic as in related to prostate, and hyperplasia as in related to kind of swelling, bigness, swelling of the right? And that is not going to kill you. It's not cancerous. It's not something that's going to grow. In the case of prostate cancer or any cancers, they grow out of their space and invade other tissues, and that's what often causes death. Right? So you may have a BPH, and there are lots of men who've been treated. They have stoppage of water or the discomforts, but they don't have cancer. Or you may just have an infection in the prostate. A digital examination gives you the ability, gives your clinician, your doctor, the ability to discern between one clinical condition and the other. Okay? So if Terry had done his PSA 6 years ago and a DRE, he might have found that his prostate was checking. Because he's saying when he's diagnosed 3 years ago, right, Terry? When he's diagnosed 2+ years ago.
A year.
No, just over a year ago.
All right.
A year and a half.
15, and that is high. That rings a lot of bells. But had he been examined routinely, and that is why we ask our men to get screened every year.
Okay.
And one of the other points, I just want to make a quick point, because I don't want to say that, I don't want to overshadow the oncologists, but there can be a long time between getting prostate cancer and survivorship, because that's what's important. What are you going to survive this thing, however you want to think of it, and how well you're going to survive? Because survival also takes into consideration the quality of life a person is able to live, right? And that is why we want to do early diagnosis. We know that prostate cancer grows slowly. Terry is basically fine, and it's been probably almost 10 years. But we're asking our men to don't wait so long to get their treatment so that their lives can go on as normal. Okay? So there's that big divide between when you're diagnosed and whether you're going to survive and whether survivorship is going to be a happy place for you.
Okay. Dr. Diaz, we'd love to hear from you finally. Talk to us about the prostate cancer landscape in Grenada. How big is the problem?
Well, the problem here is big, because normally when you go on numbers, every time that you speak about statistics, you say that, for example, we have 40 in 100,000, but we don't have 100,000 men. We don't have that. We have 50,000 plus. So when you start to compare the figure, it's really a number for a small nation and with a small population. We really don't know why we have that much. We know that we, in the past of the year, we realized that doing research and that stuff, and doctors searching more for that, we were getting more patients. It's not like the cancer was not there. Cancer is there all the time. But the thing is that when the culture goes up, the people start to get information and start to get knowledge, they go into the doctor. So it's more easy for us to get the diagnosis more faster. But the cancer is there. He's staring us all the time. The only thing that sometimes, if we were not looking to that side, we were not available to see him, but he's there. It's being there all the time.
Okay. Can you share some of the numbers with us? What are our figures looking like?
Well, normally in the year, with the figures that I have more in hand is from 2014 until 16, and it is around, as I remember, it's like 35, 40. Because what happened, other thing is that we get all the patients, the information that we are getting is from the pathology from the hospital. There are some patients that they flew out. So we were not available to track them. So we just was getting what we was getting from the lab of the hospital. So that figure is not really accurate, but that's what we have.
Okay.
And we have to work with that.
Okay, so based on the figures that you're working with, what would you say is the survival rate? Once you're diagnosed, what is the survival rate?
Well, the survival, it's like Dr. Nixon said, everything depends on the diagnosis. If we do the diagnosis earlier, we're going to have better survival. But there is a difference when you're treating patients with prostate cancer in between the spreading. It's not the same thing when the patient gets spread into the bones that to get spread into the liver or the lungs or so. So the people who get spread into the liver, the survivor is poor. Patients that they get in the bones, they have better survival.
So Janelle, in order to get good numbers, we have to have a cancer registry, and we're still struggling because the registry tells you John Doe is diagnosed with cancer today, and you follow him until he dies. Whether he dies because a bus bounces him down or he drowned on the beach, but at least you know he's there, right? Or he dies because his cancer becomes complicated, or he dies because you really can't do anything by the time you diagnose it. So I don't think anybody in Grenada can give you a survivorship. One, because like Dr. Diaz says, we still don't have our men going there, right? And we're not diagnosing as many. And you're going to have a lot of people in the beginning because there are a lot of people who are there. And the other thing is that Dr. Aiken reminded us that cancer of the prostate is a disease of aging. So as you get older, you'd have, and there are men who are 75 and 80, and you look at the PSAs, you check their prostates and you realize they do have cancer, but they're 80 years old and it's going to grow slowly. And they're going to lie down on their bed and die and of a heart attack or nothing at all, not related to cancer. So if you have a registry, you can get a better idea as to how long men living, what are they dying from, when do you diagnose, what stage. You'd have all that data in one place. So surveillance and data management is what's going to give us an exact answer for you.
Okay, got you. Mrs. Smith and Oneal, I want to get back to you for a bit. So Smith, for instance, you were diagnosed just a little over a year ago, and right now you're cancer-free. What was the treatment process like?
Okay, so I did my blood works around June of 2019. I was diagnosed on the 13th of September 2019. And I did surgery in the United States exactly 2 months to the day, on the 13th of November 2019. It was what they call a radical prostatectomy. The prostate was removed. I was very, very fortunate in that it was a very good hospital in New Jersey. And it was what they call keyhole surgery. It was robotic surgery. And so I went into the hospital one day and I came out the following day. And I am aware that different people, that every patient is different. And different people react differently to, being put on a general anesthetic, your pace of recovery and so forth. There are some side effects of the radical prostatectomy that are well known. And different people recover at different, each person recovers at a different pace. What I can say is that my recovery has been slow, So I am like 15 months out of surgery, and I consider that I'm still recovering because I haven't fully regained my stamina, and I still get tired very easily and so forth. I've been trying to eat a bit more healthy than I did before, and generally I ate pretty healthy to very healthy. I don't eat junk food. I use very, very limited sugar in my diet and so on for many years. So my recovery generally has been pretty slow. But what I can say is that it's even though I only spent one day or one night overnight in the hospital, and it's you have 5 little incisions in your abdomen. What I've been told by people generally who are perhaps wiser than me and my doctors is that it is still major surgery. Your body has been put under significant trauma, and you have to be mindful of that. So initially, so very early last year, just around the time when COVID was coming on, I was back on the treadmill at home, and I was walking and so on and so forth. And I think maybe I tried to get back into exercise a bit too early because I couldn't sustain it. And then I just lost all interest in, doing my exercises and so forth. And I kind of had to backtrack again and, kind of take the recovery a bit more slowly. But it's been a roller coaster journey. I'm happy to be alive. I'm trying to join the Cancer Society when they're ready for me. You can ask Dr. Nixon there. Because I think that I understand what she's saying, and Dr. Diaz would be grappling with that too. And I'm back in Grenada more than a year now, and I'm willing to share my story and my information and my records with whoever medical facilities, because while I was diagnosed here, but as Dr. Diaz was mentioned, my pathology work was not done in Grenada at the lab here. It was done in Trinidad. And as I said, my surgery was done in the US. Mm-hmm. Right? But I have my pathology report and so on. They, from what I understand and from what my doctors told me, I had early stage prostate cancer. There is no indication that it spread outside of the, what is it called, the wall of the prostate. Absolutely. And my prognosis for survival, and as I was told that I may die at sometime T in the future from perhaps something else. Right? I've done a couple of prostate tests since I've returned to Grenada, and they were very low, almost undetectable and so on, which is what I understand it's supposed to be. So I'll be doing my tests every 6 months and so. And so that's basically where I am. I found just a final point in sharing my story is that if you were to ask me in a sentence to describe my experience, it's major surgery. It's a major trauma on your body, and you need to be mindful of it. I have been very fortunate to have gotten very good advice from colleagues and friends and so on, men who have trod this path before me. But one thing that I think is missing, certainly from my experience, and I think in Grenada generally, is this surgery and having cancer and being a cancer survivor has certain psychological impacts on you that I was certainly unprepared for, and I'm still grappling with those elements of it. And I think that being in an entity, in an organization like the Cancer Society, where you can talk and share, not just on a 1-hour radio program or whatever it is, but to share experiences and so forth, and things like diet and exercise and what has your experience been like and so forth, can only be helpful. And I think that is what I'm missing. And the psychological impact and how to cope with it, I did a lot of research prior to my surgery and immediately after. And then there became a time when I just said, you know what? I will never be an oncologist. I don't want to be a doctor. I know enough about this problem, and I just back up. So I stopped going online. I stopped researching. I know enough about it. And I just want to, enjoy a good quality of life. I'm thankful for life. I live life one day at a time, as they say. And I'm just happy to be alive. So that's the essence of my story.
Thank you for sharing. We love the positive attitude. And I'm sure Dr. Nixon will take you up on that invitation to join the society.
Well, that's what she told me.
She's a woman of her word.
A few weeks ago, she did.
A few weeks ago? She's going to get you. She's going to get you. We need to take a quick break. It is 17 minutes gone past 9. Mr. Oneal, when we come back, we want to hear your story, but we need to take a quick break. Sure. It's Doctor on Call. Stay with us.
And Valley Pharmacy offers both wholesale and retail pharmaceutical and over-the-counter products. We have the most competitive and affordable prices. We are the agents for Vit Plus multivitamin for healthy everyday lifestyle and Sanatogen powder. Hills and Valley Pharmacy supplies the best quality, name brand clinical products such as Rescue Oil, Bio Oil, Neutrogena, Aveeno, and Clarisil. We offer the most convenient opening hours. Our telephone numbers are 435-6904 or 6903. Remember, at Hills and Valley Pharmacy, your health is our business. We care.
Now open, Hills and Valley Medicare Center, your one-stop for medical supplies, massage therapy, physiotherapy, and an in-house physician. At Hills and Valley, your health is our business.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
You want a hand sanitizer to do 3 things: kill germs, be gentle, and to go where you go. You can get all of that in our hand sanitizer. Hard on germs, gentle on hands, affordable. Remember, hand sanitizers contain alcohol. Keep away from heat and flames and avoid contact with eyes. Available at retailers island-wide.
A message by the Grenada Distillers Limited.
How going on, boy?
Hey, good old things.
Hey, easy.
Yeah.
Boy, in line, boy. Your house looking a real good day.
Boy, it's thanks to the hard-working and professional staff at the Housing Authority of Grenada. They handled me real nice. They did my plan, they did the construction, and I didn't even have to worry about a thing. They were there with me every step of the way, supervising the job, asking me about my concerns, giving me feedback as the house took shape. They were there from start to finish, and even put the keys in the palm of my hand. I give them an A++ for customer service.
Oh, it's people from housing bad, boy.
Boy, not bad. Excellent. If you're thinking about constructing your home, why not consult the Housing Authority of Grenada? You could visit them right down in the Sandino complex, or give them a call, 440-1015 or 440-1016. Or check out their website, hag473.com. They go handle you. They go jog your blocks, they go draw your plan, they go tote your materials. Hey man, where you going? The Housing Authority of Grenada is your choice for affordable housing and a stress-free construction experience.
There's nothing good about jail. I don't want to be here.
My father told me that as far as he was concerned, I could stay in the home forever.
Our children deserve a chance for change. Children make mistakes, and child justice reform can help everyone to address these mistakes appropriately. Instead of sending a child to adult prison, let us give them alternative sentencing. We must divert our children from the court system through a holistic and systematic approach to addressing their offense and their road to rehabilitation. Rehabilitation helps child offenders to grow, change, learn from mistakes, accept responsibility, and make better choices. Reintegration of child offenders into the community after rehabilitation benefits the child, the family, and the community with a more productive citizen. Join the movement to give our children a chance for change. This message is brought to you by the USAID OECS Juvenile Justice Reform Project 2, funded by the United States Agency for International Development. For more information, log on to oecs.org/JJRP.
friendly faces, sweet exotic fruits, fresh veggies, local spices. Just what you find when exploring our bustling Grenadian markets on Fridays and Saturdays. That is why GBN, Maggie, and Just Cool Media have teamed up with the Ministry of Works to bring you Maggie Market Vibes. Meet the people that feed us, clothe us, and keep the economy going. Plus, get your Maggie seasonings and other products weekly at the best prices. Maggie Market Vibes, live from markets across the island, Saturdays from 9 to 11 a.m. on GBN television and social media platforms. Maggie Market Vibes, your Saturdays are about to be turned up.
All our time has moved on to 21 minutes after the 9 o'clock hour, and we're chatting here with our cancer survivors, Mr. Terrance Smith and Mr. Ronald Oneal, as well as Doctors Hector Diaz and Dr. Sonia Nixon. Before the break, we were getting some feedback from our survivors on how they... Okay. Yeah, we were getting some feedback on how they were able to deal with being diagnosed and the treatment process. We heard from Mr. Smith, Mr. Oneal. We want to hear from you now. What was your experience like after you were diagnosed?
So I had my positive diagnosis in December 2018. I did a biopsy and pathology in Jamaica, and I subsequently did surgery in the United States. Also, radical prostatectomy, as Terrance did, and that was robot assisted. I also have the five dark holes on my abdomen. Okay, so as I stated earlier, I saw that my PSA had been ranked from 2016. And what I always reflected on was when my dad was sick, the last few months of his life, and especially the last few weeks of his life, I saw him suffer. And I always said to myself, I don't want to be suffering like that. If I can avoid suffering like that, So, and that's the reason why I did that annual PSA test, right, from the time I was 40. Sometimes I didn't even go to the doctor to get people. I would just go to, are you hearing me?
Yes, we're hearing you.
I would just go to the lab, do my PSA, then take the result to the doctor. So then he would say, okay, this is looking good, or okay, I think it's moving a little bit, we need to do a digital test, and so on and so forth. Yeah, I used to actually make my copy of a photocopy of the test, leave a copy with the doctor, and then keep a copy for myself. So when I got this positive diagnosis, of course, once you're told that you have cancer, it's never good news. But I was not depressed, because what the test showed was that it was early stage, first stage prostate cancer. It was still within the capsule. It didn't start spreading as yet, right? So I felt that, okay, I caught this thing early, right? And it hasn't spread. I'm not likely to suffer a similar fate as my dad did. And I started looking at what's the next step. Of course, I did a lot of reading, and my doctor also gave me a lot of guidance, explained what the options are. He told me that prostate cancer generally doesn't grow very quickly, in most cases, and I don't have to rush to get an operation done. But I was diagnosed in December, and I did the surgery in July, the 1st of July of the following year. I had spoken to a few people before of what to expect. And I did a lot of reading and a lot of YouTube a lot of YouTube videos, listening to people who had a similar surgery, share their experiences. So I had a fairly good idea of what to expect. I did the surgery on the 1st of July and on the 17th of July. I saw my doctor on the 16th of July as the last visit. I came back. I flew back to Grenada just 2.5 weeks after. And physically, of course, you had major surgery and it's not the same. But after say 6 months, I felt I was feeling strong. I think as strong as I felt before my surgery. Yeah, so I don't feel any weakness. After surgery, of course, every 3 months, I had to be doing a PSA test. And as Terrance pointed out, the PSA should be almost undetectable. Yeah. And then after 9 months, I started doing it every 6 months. Yeah. So that's the state that I am at now.
Okay, great. Thank you so much for sharing. And I know a lot of men especially, they don't like to share. They don't like to get tested. If they get tested, it's a secret. But I think with sharing, we can help other men to come forward and to get the test. Dr. Nixon or Dr. Diaz, either one of you, I'm hearing about the robotics tests. Are those tests that could be done in Grenada?
It's robotic surgery.
Robotic surgery.
So, it's funny because I'm thinking that this is a good space for Diaz because he sees people. Whom does he see? Because they're not seeing him. They're not doing oncology. These are men who are diagnosed relatively early, who've been treated by the doctor, and the doctor just follows up their PSA to make sure that it doesn't. If you don't have any prostate tissue, you're not supposed to produce any PSA. We understand that, right? So these are men who are basically heading into recovery, already in recovery from their cancer situation. Dr. Diaz's patients is a different story. They did robotics because robotics is new and it's trendy. We don't have those kind of surgery. We don't even have radiotherapy.
So what do we have?
Surgery. Train, doctor go in and cut it. Open your belly and go in there.
So that's our only option in Grenada?
Currently.
Yeah, so far.
Okay. The testing and getting the PSAs done, where can one get those tests done? I heard Oneal mention his lab. I'm sure everybody probably don't have access to a lab as probably he did. Where can one get a PSA test done?
So I'd like to make my first sentence, my opening statement very memorable. Best practices insist, and Terry said it, that you have a digital rectal examination that the doctor examines you, and then you have a PSA. He had a digital rectal examination. They both had. That's why they could go and do the PSAs after. You have to be examined by a physician. It's your better option. And your doctor will send you to the lab.
Right.
Most of the labs in St. George's do prostate exams.
Okay. So
I want to ask you, Terrance, what was your first reading? 2 point something? Let's say 2.2?
No, the initial one was about 1.8 or 1.9 or something like that.
All right. I want to share you, because I like the anecdotes, because it gives you what reality is. I have a friend and a patient who moved to Grenada in the last 4 years and became my friend because we have mutual friends, but who's very, very on top of his health state. So in about June or some in the summer, June or July, August, I don't remember, 2019, he calls and he says, I'd like you to interpret my PSA. And I said, what is your PSA? It was 4.9. He's 48 or 49 years old. So what? I said, okay, what is your PSA before that? And he said, 3.7. And what's the PSA before that? This is a year before, 2.5. Now, if I see a 48-year-old with a 2.5 PSA, and like I said earlier, I repeat it. It is important that you have serial PSAs, regular, annually at least, Okay? If it looks a little suspicious. Because the truth is, at 3.7, he actually had prostate cancer. You get my drift? At 2.5, he actually had prostate cancer. There's a limit. Your PSA limit is 0 to 4. But one PSA doesn't say yes, yay or nay. And that is why it is so important to have both components of diagnosis in order that you can say yes or no. Okay? You must have both components of diagnosis and not just one. And that is best practice. I know and I understand that for men it's a little difficult that they have a rectal examination. We do pap smears, it takes us 10 minutes. A PSA takes 5, 6, 10 seconds. A rectal examination. A pap smear takes you 10 minutes sometimes. Okay? The point I'm making is that we have to get our men, and these men are advocates, to focus. This is just another examination. You went to the dentist, he's going to open your mouth and take his probe and probe every tooth in your mouth. Whatever it is. We have to help people to understand that the best way to look for it is this way. Okay? I do not do PSAs for people who have not had a rectal examination because I think when I do that to my male patients, I'm cheating them. Unless there's some other indication, like you have hemorrhoids that are painful or something. But I would not cheat my patient out of the very important part of the diagnostic procedure. So mostly your doctor will take it and he say, okay, here's what it is. But like I said, if I saw you last year and it was 2.5 and this year is 3.7, I'm going to start making somersaults. It has to be something that is, it's very dynamic, something that might be growing. If I saw 2.5, I'd probably repeat it in 3 months anyway to make sure that is really 2.5 and not a mistake.
Okay.
Okay. So it's not just if you have a PSA that's between 0 and 4, you're okay, no. Because it must be done serially. It cannot just be, you can't just do one and say, hey, good, my PSA in 2012 was 1.6. No.
Okay.
And Terry's here to tell you that's not how it goes.
Dr. Hickson, what I'm trying to get at though is the rectal exam, for instance. Can it be done at your general practitioner?
Yes, any physician can.
Any physician. You don't have to specifically see an oncologist or something. Right.
I mean, we have enough health centers and you can go to your general practitioner, but a physician is who should be doing your rectal examination.
Okay. Because a lot of the times you hear sometimes people say, I had an exam, but sometimes when you check back, or they have the annuals, those types of tests are not part of it. So it's something you have to specifically go and ask for.
Well, it should be something that is offered to all men over 40.
Okay.
All men over 40 should be encouraged to have their first digital rectal examination and a prostate-specific antigen test in our environment, because the studies are showing that all men are showing up early with prostate cancer, and a lot of them. And there are a lot of them who are out there, as we were saying earlier, who have not been diagnosed because they just don't go, right? But the standard for us in the Caribbean is that at 40, men of Afro-Caribbean history should at 40 start screening, because that is what, if you're white, you can actually start at 50. But then who's pure white around here? Do you understand?
Yeah.
So we know from research that our men at 40 start having changes. So at 40 we start looking.
Okay. Outside of going to a doctor or a healthcare professional, is there anything men can do at home on their own that could lead to early detection? Any signs they can see and say, maybe I'm feeling a stone here, or maybe I'm feeling some change in that area that may indicate something is amiss?
No, because that's why it goes through the rectum, because it's so profoundly placed in the lower abdomen. The prostate is between, at the end of the bladder, you can't touch the bladder really, and at the head of the penis, right? At the base, of the penis, where it attaches to the body, but deep in the pelvis. So there's no way you can touch it unless you go through the rectum. So there's nothing really that men can do to detect it on their own at home, like doing a breast examination in the case of a female or in a male. No, it's not that discernible. You can't discern it that way. You have to go to your doctor. And even when you start having signs, it may be because you already have relatively advanced disease.
Okay. I want to look at a bit at the psychological support. Mrs. Smith mentioned he feels it was lacking. What support, what systems do we have in place for men once they're diagnosed in Grenada?
Well, I think we can look at that generally in the context of cancer, because everybody who has cancer, most people would have to undergo surgery, because one of the main ways of treating cancer, and the oncologist is here, right, is surgical, removing that thing that's growing. All right. Some people already have such advanced disease that you can give chemotherapy to contain it a bit, or radiotherapy, but everybody has surgery. And I'm not sure what happens at the level of the hospital, but everybody who's going to do major surgery should have psychological counseling. I know the Cancer Society does offer for people who solicit, and the Cancer Society does offer for people who solicit, and after surgery, you can get some support from Cancer Society. I don't know I cannot speak to the public health system because I really don't know. Doctor in oncology might be able to share what happens at that level. Dr. Diaz.
Dr. Diaz?
Yes. Well, following the track with Nixon, there's a long way that we have to go on that, because really patients with cancer, you not only treat them, you treat the family as well. So everybody needs support, everybody needs counseling. One of the things that we have is that doctors need to be prepared for deliver bad news. That's something very important. If you don't know how to get to that patient, if you don't know how to talk to him, that patient is going to feel depressed and is going to feel like the war is over very soon. But like you talk to him, you also have to talk with the family, because normally those patients have one person who's in charge of him. That person we call the primary carrier, which is the person who knows everything about him, what the result of the labs, which medication that she's taking, was the surgery, the doctor, I can contact the doctor. And we have to take care of those people because they are important as well. And we really have to work on that. Or work on that is very slow. We have to do more.
Okay. Treatment for cancer in Grenada, the surgery and the visits, and so is it free in Grenada? Is it something people have to pay for?
Well, so far surgeries, we're not doing too much surgeries here. Really the treatment is an issue. It's really an issue. There are patients like Terrance that they are stage 1 or stage 2, which one you can use radiotherapy instead to use the ectomy, and they are going to have wonderful results. But we cannot use that. And for do something like that, you have to send the patient abroad, or you have to send him to Trinidad or US or Venezuela, anywhere that we have really, Barbados, Jamaica, anywhere. So the other thing that we have is that the prostate cancer is a hormonal cancer. So we treat it with hormones until that hormone starts to fail. Then the chemotherapy starts going in. But that's the issue. The treatment is not cheap. So when the treatment is not cheap, you're not doing anything, doing a brilliant diagnosis and having a patient, if it's not available to afford it, you are done. This is over. The game is over. So we are trying all the time to try to get ways of try to do the best as we can. But those are issues that we need to try to see if we are able to resolve, because that the health of those patients that we have is, we don't know what is going to be happen, because if they cannot afford a treatment, how are they going to get well?
What is the average cost of the treatment?
Well, the bicalzutamide, which is something that we use very regular, the tablet, 150 milligram, I think is about one something. 1 EC and some cents, and I'm not pretty sure now. If you send 50 milligrams, the patient have to buy 30. But if you increase to 100, they have to buy 60. So that's how to count. But normally, we associated another medication, and one of the names of that medication is Soladex. The Soladex is expensive. It's very expensive.
And wait, before you go on, that is part of the hormonal treatment we're talking about here. Yes?
Because we work as chemical. But for the demonstration, we need to combine two medications at the same time. Because the other one is remove the testicles, which is something that we've been doing regularly. Because when we remove the testicles, we are removing 80% of the stimulation of the prostate. Still at 20% that we have to control, but we are removing the 80%. And for the people that they have low resources, well, this is something. But it's not the real thing that we have to try to get. The real thing that we try to get is using the treatment that is being used in the first world. It could be available to use here, bicalzutamide, Soladex, because we don't have too much patients either. So we can treat it. So far, that's how I see the problem. Because, salaries are low. Soladex is about 3 months, every 3 months time, and it's about 1,000 and something, one injection. So when you start to make the numbers, I don't have too many patients that can afford to spend 1,000 and something EC every 3 months to get one injection.
That was very depressing. I have to say, I'm hearing removing testicles.
It comes back to the importance of very, very early diagnosis, because the surgeon can still remove the prostate, as has happened in our two survivors. When you get to the stage where you have more advanced disease, and if we don't have a urologist, which is a specialist, so a surgeon does this. So imagine he has all his general surgery work to do, and then you have all these men who come up with prostate challenges. So that's one of the other challenges, having enough professionals to take care if we go on diagnosing, to make sure that everybody gets treated early and so they can live their life as our guests are doing.
Right, and as Dr. Diaz was mentioning, the costs surrounding the treatment is almost prohibitive, and I'm thinking the average person coming forward may not be able to afford those costs. Is there any system or any support in place for people who are diagnosed early and probably need some treatment?
Are you asking us policy questions?
If you can answer, I'd be happy.
Cancer Society have a kind of support. I know that they get donations, and so they help patients to get treatment, and that's how it goes. I think Nixon can tell more about that, but that's how it goes.
So there's some support for people from Cancer Society, but there's been COVID, so we haven't had any donations or anything significant last year. And we do help people who need support. Not everybody. If you can afford, at least part of it, But there's some people who just can't afford anything at all. So there's some support. But also, I know that the ministry, the pharmaceutical division does have, there's a way you can seek out some support and all the rest through the pharmacy department at the hospital, at the ministry level for people who need some help. I don't know. I know there's a bit of a fund for that. But I can't answer all the policy things. I really don't know everything as it comes to that.
Okay, but thanks for sharing what you do know. Gentlemen or two survivors, Mr. Smith, Mr. Oneal, before we wrap, the men are listening out there. They're listening to you. You're brave. You've done your research. You've survived. What advice can you give to our Grenadian men? Mr. Smith, we start with you.
Dr. Nixon said it about 15 times for the evening already. let me just comment on the cost thing without getting into specifics. What I can say to people, my only experience is that when I received my diagnosis, and I received my diagnosis like 7 o'clock on a Friday evening, and I was in my doctor's office waiting for about 2.5 hours. I was the very last patient there. My wife was with me. I got great support from her then throughout it till the present. And when you get the news, it hits you like not 1, but 100 tons of bricks. Right? That was my experience. As I said, I wasn't aware that I had any family history of prostate. Certainly, I had no brothers or immediate family. My father didn't. I didn't. I subsequently learned of a couple uncles and so on. Right. So it hits you like a ton of bricks. I was recommended that I should try to get to the United States. Right, to do the radical prostate. My doctor, the doctors that I've seen, were of the view that if you have the cancer growing inside of you, even though it may be slow growing, try to remove it from your body as soon as possible. Mm-hmm. Right? Now, I didn't have a clue how I would fund my surgery at the time. So that part could be very, very challenging. What I want to say to all men out there is the number 1, number 2, and number 3 advice is from the time you reach 40 years old, do an annual digital rectal exam. Whether a nurse does it for you, I guess a nurse could do it in your health center, whoever it is, a doctor in the health center, or your private doctor, or you go to the hospital, or when you travel abroad, whatever it is. Right? Find out how you can get a digital rectal exam along with you do your blood tests for the PSA. Just draw some blood on the thing. The PSA test costs, I don't know, $100 or whatever it is.
$100 now.
$100 now. Right. So it's not $5 or $10 or $15, but it's not thousands of dollars. And you do that every year, right? So that you can detect. Now the thing is, if you can detect at an early stage, even though initially you don't have a clue whether you can afford to go abroad, whether you can do surgery here or what, but at least having the knowledge of your early detection and diagnosis, it gives you the possibility, and I'm sure Ronald would bear me out in it, it gives you the possibility to look at options. Right? It gives you the luxury to look at options. And as I said, you had no symptoms, or you didn't know you were sick, you wasn't feeling sick, you weren't feeling tired, you didn't have any issues and so on. But it gives you the opportunity to look at options. Because of the history of our society and so on, most of us have family members in the States, in New York or somewhere in North America or Canada, wherever and so forth. Right? And we can call on, I was able to get the support of my family and so on and so forth. And, family in the United States and so that you can call on your social resources, let's call it that, right, to assist you. And it is amazing how my story involves when you're seriously ill, right, people will support you, right? Because it is a question of if you don't get the treatment in a timely manner, your quality of life would significantly deteriorate. You may live for a few more years, but at what quality of life? So it's a question of sustaining life. So my message to men out there, from the time you reach 40, do your digital rectal exam. Most men don't like it. They don't like somebody pushing their finger up their rectum. It is uncomfortable, but that is the least of your worries. If you want to live, right, to a decent old age and you want to have a decent quality of life, swallow whatever pride and so on is involved and do your digital rectal exam. Spend our money and do your PSA tests. Do not just sit down on it and figure, you see, because I was deluded. I didn't know until fairly recently. Ronald, because of his family history, he knew a lot about it and he been, thing. I wasn't aware of that it's not just a snapshot. It is the rate of increase and so on. And I felt when mine was 4.5, 4 or 5 years ago, I say, man, that's borderline. I went to my doctor the time my doctor told me I would wait and see, wait and watch, and so on and so forth. And I was deluded, right? So bottom line, do your tests from the time you reach 40, digital rectal exam, and your PSA. Don't interpret it yourself unless you're a medical doctor or you are some specialist in some field of medicine. Let your doctor, who is a professional, give you the medical advice. And if and when the time comes that you do in fact have a cancer diagnosis, try to get to an oncologist, right? Pulling out all your family resources, all stops, all assistance, right? So try to get the professional advice. Because options gives you time to, even if it's a few months or whatever it is, to make proper choices and so forth. And it significantly increases your chances of a recovery and having a decent quality of life.
Okay, thank you so much.
So that's basically, I can't say much more.
Sound advice. Mr. Oneal?
Well, Janelle, Terrance has been so comprehensive. There is not much this. But, as men, we tend to like gadgets, right? We have a car and we wash it down every day. We service it on time and we do everything to keep that vehicle running, right? The pinker form. But our bodies, sometimes we don't take that level of care with our bodies, right? So the cancer, prostate cancer, if you have prostate cancer and it spreads, we know what we have heard, many stories of people having prostate cancer and what the end can be. So as Terrance encouraged men, I would like to join in also encouraging men from the time you're 40, check with your physician, have your prostate examined. He will decide whether the PSA and the digital test. He will decide how regularly you should be doing that test. For example, I remember that at one point when my PSA was rising, and my doctor said, okay, instead of doing it in a year time, you need to do it in 3 months and come back to me, So the doctor is the specialist and he's the one who would manage that. In terms of a positive diagnosis, of course, it's best to know early if you have prostate cancer so that it can be managed better and you have better survival rate, as Terrance and I are fortunately. As he said, people will support you. People will come forward, They will give you suggestions. They will give you connections. I had connections. There are persons who came to me and said, Oneal, you can go to this person and they will connect you to that person. And, my story was kind of similar, where someone said to me, Oneal, go to this doctor and he will connect you to that doctor in New York, and that doctor will connect you to this hospital. So that was my case. Having the diagnosis, I wasn't sure how I would get treated, but eventually things worked out. And I don't think that men should feel that, okay, if they have prostate cancer, they may not be in a position to take the necessary measures to take care of themselves. Options will open up. And so this is what I would like to leave men with. Do your digital exam with your doctor and your PSA tests from 40. And let your doctor help you manage that issue. Yeah. And with this, we will be able to get on top of the prostate cancer issue of men getting to know too late when they have some issue, some pain in the waist or in the back or in the legs or wherever. And then they realize they have stage 3 or stage 4 prostate. They cannot do too much about it. Thank you.
Well, gentlemen, I think you've rounded it off nicely. You are the experts tonight, so we won't even go back to the doctors. Thank you so much for sharing your experience.
No, I need to.
We need to come back to the doctor.
yeah. Because
you have 30 seconds to wrap.
And I can say what I want to say in Texas. I'm going to ask men to start the conversation because that's what I want. One of the things I want to come here. I want men to start talking. You go to the auto road, they talk about bear, car, girl, COVID, not taking the vaccine, and all the crap. I want people to men start talking about their health in general and their prostate health in particular. That's a conversation. So it becomes normal. It becomes easy to talk about. We kind of need to break the barriers. One, I want men to start celebrating their lives. On your birthday, they said, I'm going to get checked. Not just for your prostate, but you have cholesterol and heart and lung and, and celebrate your life by living good lives. Contain the alcohol, stop smoking, exercise, get your optimal weight and all the things that put you at risk. I want men to understand also that you have to indulge in best practices. And we've said it a million times, digital rectal examination and a PSA. That is the best practice. As you're fooling yourself if you're not doing the right things. And trust me, it's $100 for your thing. You guys drink 10 beer every weekend, kind of take 3 weekends off and save the money because you have to be interested. Yeah, it costs. Everything it costs. And it's better that it costs you cheap now than you miss it and it costs you a whole lot more in the end. Because if you do your screens regularly, you catch it early and it's not going to cost you half as much. And then oncologist is going to be useless because nobody's going to need to see him because you're going there so early. But let's try and avoid having to go to that part where it's really, really difficult by really practicing self-love and by sharing the love among yourselves as men. That is what I want to see happen for all. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Nixon. You went over time, but I expected it. Thank you so much, viewing, for following us on our social media platform. I'm sorry we weren't able to get your calls and comments today, but the discussion will continue. I'm sure there'll be another opportunity for you to do so. To our survivors, Mr. Smith, Mr. Oneal, thank you so much. We appreciate you sharing this evening. And
very welcome.
Thank you. And we hope that some men will use your stories to come forward and first step to get the test. I'm Janelle. Thank you all so much for viewing. This was Dr. On Call. Bye-bye for tonight.
Thank you. Good night.
Bye.
Good night.